I think that anybody in business, whether they're a man or woman, it doesn't matter. I have a sign when you enter my office, and it says, success is failure turned inside out. And if you're afraid to fail, you can't succeed. And people that never fail never do anything. That's why they never fail.
That's
Okay.
right.
Anybody that I know, I don't care what profession it is, if you're an actress, an actor, has failed. Picked themselves up, brushed themselves off, felt sorry for a while, maybe even cried, and got back into the game again.
Yeah.
So I think that we're both, I think, very similar that way. We're transparent, and anybody that wants to excel in their business has to go through ups and downs. There's no way around it. I would always say to myself, well, am I better than I was last month? I might not be there, I might be climbing that mountain, but I'm better than I was last month, and that counts. And I also went to so many different things. When people said, why are you going to that? Why are you going to that convention? Why are you... And I just want to say, I applaud everybody that goes to events and hears speakers. When I was in my 20s, I worked for Merrill Lynch, and I had some great mentors. And in their day, Merrill Lynch was like, forget it, they ruled. And I had a mentor that always said to me, Dottie, you're going to earn what you think. It starts here. So he would say to me, get yourself out and be around people that don't always think like you or that are at a different level. So people made fun of me. I went to all these things and I grew my thinking, and I applaud everyone that comes, because I really think they're a big part of how you evolve. Going to and hearing great speakers, and then seeing other people in the same profession talking about different ways they've done it. I think that is such growth, and I think eventually that does translate into money. I sometimes try not, I don't even negotiate. I mean, I'm a great negotiator, but I don't, I value people's business. And I think that, look, everyone has to be a little flexible, but the point is, I would think your business is like ours. There are real estate companies that charge like $150, okay, to sell a listing. I mean, there are, and so I think that when you meet somebody, you need to really stress, yourself and your brand and what you do and how you differentiate yourself from everybody else. And if you want the cheapest person, then maybe you get up and walk. Negotiating, two people have to win. Not one person is, I want to be lost. Okay, so that whole idea is not to say, well, I'm not going to move 1 inch. You're going to have to do it. But it's where you do, like you said, a give and take, negotiate. Well, I'm going to give you this, but we're going to do that. And maybe I'll drop it a little, but I'll take a room out, or I'll do this and that. And I think that's the skill of negotiating. But I think that's key, because I think both people, the stager and the home buyer, or sometimes the broker's paying for it. I guess you can have it set up and paid by anybody you want. I mean, the broker might pay for it, the company might, the homeowner. But I think at the end of the day, everyone has to feel like a winner. Anybody always has some fears, some doubts. But when you have them, the whole key is you carry on despite them. And that feels like my story. But I didn't know when that happened that out of this childhood tragedy, I would learn the life skills that would actually mold me into who I was going to be and help me throughout the rest of my entire life. I had to make decisions. I learned to just be self-sufficient. And that's out of a tragedy. So you never know how things learn. So I have my meeting with Prudential. Now, one thing I do know in business, I'm a pretty good salesman. You don't talk about negative things first, because you'll close somebody off. So I talked all about the great company and this, that, and the other thing, all the wonderful things that I would do for 2 hours, not telling them I have no money. Okay? But I sold my vision. I sold what I saw. I sold what it could be. and how much bigger it could be. And I sold how much more money they'd make in franchise fees. So then I had to tell them, I'm committed, I can do this. I had a letter from everybody in the company, they wanted me to stay. I said, but there's one detail. I just don't have the money. You have to lend it to me. They said, what? We're not lending you the money. We can't lend you the money. Well, another lesson I learned, no doesn't mean no. We're taught as children, don't touch the stove, no. But in life, no just doesn't mean maybe not today, maybe a week from now, maybe another time. So they did say no a couple of times, but wow, they lent me something like $17 million. No personal guarantees. I had $1,000 if I had that in the bank. And they gave me working capital of, I don't know, a couple of million. I had nothing. And if you think back at that, people say to me, well, Dottie, they don't do that now. Well, I assure you they didn't do it then. But what's the worst that can happen? Ask. The worst that happens is someone says no. And don't be afraid of that word. I am proud to say it's been 16 years since I took Manhattan, where I'm still a CEO, and the company controls a portfolio of real estate services, Douglas Elliman Marketing, Douglas Elliman Property Management, commercial title. I think we have about 115 offices and about 7,500 people. So it's really grown. And sometimes when I'm standing and telling this story, it's hard to believe it even happened. And when I first started speaking about entrepreneurs and about entrepreneurship, because talk to me about real estate, I could talk for 20 hours. I did all the homework. I'm reading, business plans, this, that. And I'm speaking to a group of people who want to be entrepreneurs, and I said, well, you know what? I didn't do it this way. This is what the books say you have to do, but I didn't do it this way. And I think there's a lot of ways to do it. So I don't think there's one set way. I think we're all women here now, and I think we're all on a journey for success in business, success personally, and that looks different for everyone. We want fulfillment in our lives, and all of the paths, everyone's path to success might be different. There's not, I don't think, a cookie cutter way. But if you embrace some of the things that I am going to tell you, I really believe you will find success in no matter what you do, okay? They're really simple. Number one, find what you're passionate about. If you don't love something, you can be okay in it, you can be good in it, but you're never going to be great. When you love something, it doesn't become work. It becomes your passion. So if you keep on going out there, and when I wasn't sure of what I wanted to do, I worked for Merrill. I'm like, I don't know, I'm doing this, but they said it was a great environment. They said, Dottie, just go do things. If you do them right, you'll create your own job. If you do them wrong, we'll fire you, okay? But they allowed me to grow, and you should look at that when you're looking at companies. Thomas Edison, he has a quote. It says, I failed my way to success. I think he made 10,000 light bulbs that didn't work. And maybe on the 11,000, it finally worked. So don't be afraid of that. It's part of the process. And that doesn't mean only business. It's, relationships, with your children sometimes. Nothing's perfect. Good is the enemy of great, because most people are satisfied with good. Don't be. Go for being great. Let's step into our power. Let's make an oath here. As I said, I'm going to be involved with whatever you guys need to really work on our personal goals in business and at home, and let's make an oath to each other that we support each other as women. And if we do that, I think we can change the world. That's really one of the biggest lessons people can learn. What is the worst that can happen? Oh, someone says no. Someone says, oh, what a fool to even try. Okay. And when you think of those consequences, I always tell people it's not like you're a brand new surgeon and if you make a mistake, you're going to kill somebody. Anyone who's successful in no matter what profession they're in, if you really look at their life, because people see them when they're already successful. They had a million no's. When people are young, they're less afraid. Okay? Sometimes people know too much. And sometimes like people say, oh my God, how did you do that, Dottie? It could never happen. Well, the chances of it happening were not great. But the fact is, so what? You try. And sometimes I think, and it's not a matter of age, I should correct myself. People get skeptical and they listen to their friends who are they're thinking they're doing the right. They're saying you couldn't do it, you're not gonna get the money, where are you gonna get it, how are you gonna do it? And they put doubt in their mind. You took the words out of your mouth. Walk away from those who don't believe with you. Find people that do. Find a group of people that are positive and that believe in you, okay? And the rest of the naysayers, stay away from them. I think personality is important. I've seen many salespeople try to push something that they made and they just don't know how to sell it. So, but it's not alone. You can't just be a salesperson and nothing behind it. I truly believe that I was the best person. I truly believe that I would bring that company to the next level. I truly believed it from inside my guts. I worked for the company. I knew the company. I was passionate about it. And I took every course. I was like a sponge. And when I worked for Merrill, they offered a lot of stuff. And where many people would say, well, Dottie, why are you doing that? Why are you going to that course? They're not paying for it. Why should you do it? And I was like, well, I'm investing in myself. I was a sponge. And then you know what else, Wendy? And I watch you do it all the time. And I am committed to helping you on this. I then asked people that were positions higher than me, and I said, listen, I really want to make this, and I'm really passionate about this. Would you help mentor me? I can't tell you exactly, because there wasn't a formula. I did what I love. First of all, I do believe that in any company, everybody has a role to play, and everyone's important. There's no such thing as, oh, this guy's important, this woman's important, but these people are just not. Everyone made a contribution, and I included everyone. Like, you might be brand new, so you couldn't bring to the table the sales somebody did that was experienced, but you could bring something else. You might have did the listings for us, and I would have meetings where I involved everyone. I never did anything without talking to the company about it. So they never were worried that one day I was going to come in and give them a surprise if they didn't want to hear. I would say, listen, I'm going to try to sell you something, but before you close your arms and turn me off, open your arms, because I'm not going to force you. Just at least hear it. And then if you don't think it's a good idea, I'm going to listen, because if we can't do this together, it won't work anyway. So my company everyone was always involved in everything I did. And that gave them a comfort knowing that I wasn't going to spring something. I mean, obviously this pandemic, I couldn't have warned them about, I didn't know. And everyone played an important part in the company. And I did another thing, which I know you believe in. There's business, but sometimes in business, people go home at a certain time and they have their families. I did a lot of things that outside of business so that people would have the time to spend with each other in a non-business environment, and they would get to know each other as people.
Exactly.
And I think that makes that brings the company even closer together, because, in the course of a day, everybody's running. So we did a lot of functions where they were educational, but we had fun. We gathered people together. I'm a believer of going to seminars and things, and the company became like a family.
The number one key in building a successful business is passion. Obviously, I don't think anybody can be outstandingly successful if they're not really passionate about what they're doing. Persistence, because there's a lot of rejection. You see people when they're successful, but you don't know about all the times that they failed, and people said, no, not happening, you're not any good, and they just kept on going back. So being passionate is so important. It's what drove me. I could have never built a multi-million-dollar business without passion and without loving what I did. The truth is, if you don't act on your passion, though, you might have it, but if you don't act on it, then it's simply just an idea. And the idea might have legs initially, but ultimately will not gain traction. So you need to be, when you own a business, you need to be willing to eat, sleep, and breathe that business. And for women, I will say that it doesn't balance out equally. Like they say, oh, you can have it all, and I'm a great mother, I have kids, I'm a great husband, this, that, the other thing, I have a great business. Well, that's tough to do, and it's kind of a balancing act, and you can't say I have to go home, okay, when you have a business and things, and you need to be there. And I say this, and I can always kind of tear up about it. My father was a city worker, my mom died when I was 10. I just wasn't afraid to ask. And I hope that I share with everyone in this room that in business, you might get a million no's, but never be afraid to ask. And the next thing I did was I really grew my people. They would come to me all the time and they'd say, Dottie, how do you do this? How do you get a listing? How do you close on this $1 million property? How do you get a mortgage? And I would not always know the answer, but most times did, and say to them, when you're building a business, well, what do you think? Well, they didn't really want to think. They wanted me to give them the answer. And part of building a successful business, I think, is getting your employees to grow and think. Know that in building a business, you are going to have disappointments. As part of the business, you're going to have setbacks. But I would go home and cry and then get back in the game. Never see where they can hit you, but I mean, I had many of a crying a moment. But the company that I built supports success, but it supports failure. In fact, we don't think of failure in the traditional sense of the word. We think of failure as situations where you put yourself out, that you tried, and even if it didn't work out the way you wished, you learned from it. And when you build businesses and bring people into businesses or buy other businesses or merge, if the cultures are very different, if you just do the numbers, it could look like a win-win. But if the cultures and the people aren't, or you don't know how, or someone doesn't know how to bring those cultures together so that one doesn't feel dominated by the other, then whatever you purchased or put together a year or two later is gone. You just have to know to surround yourself with people that have skill sets that you don't have. So I want to celebrate the fact that we are all women in this room for most part, strong and powerful, and we can all build successful businesses, and I think women, we all support each other and help out. But let's also celebrate the fact that we're all human beings, and I think that's what really bonds us, and that's what ultimately leads to our success in business and life for all of us, whether you're women and men. And I think we're kind of in a time in the world where it's got to come a little bit back together, and I think as leaders we all can help do that. So remember, find something you love, be persistent, make it happen, invest in your people, and be a strong role model.
I really feel that to be successful, it's not only money, it's watching the people that you've mentored and helped become successful. Think in life there are decisions you make and events that happen in your life that change and mold the direction of your life. And my mother dying at 34 years old when I was not even 10 was certainly a life-changing moment. Not that I, at that age, really understood that. But I was the oldest and I had no mom. My dad really kind of was out of it after she died, so I just did everything on my own. I think you assess your strengths and weaknesses, hook up people who have the opposite skills. I think the person that knows everything is someone to stay away from. They're dangerous.
What can people learn from you in this time during COVID and the pandemic?
Well, I think for all of us, it was a shock. I mean, nobody was prepared. But there's one or two things that can happen. You can either roll up in a ball, okay? Or you can, and just say, I'm finished. Or you could kind of step back, feel the pain and then what I've tried to do, and I hope that I can continue to do this, is everything that happens in life, no matter any door that I walked through that was not great, when I got through the other side, there was an opportunity. So COVID, okay, you kind of have to look and say, okay, here's COVID. It is going to end sometime. What's the environment going to be like then? And do I need to tweak my business a bit?
Right.
Am I in a business that's still going to be very important? Or do I see a white space of an opportunity that might not have been before COVID, but they might be now? I think there's a lot of uncertainties. So I don't think anybody can tell you exactly, but my eyes, and I would suggest everyone's eyes, are wide open because COVID has changed. It's going to change the way people think, the way people work, or the way people do business. And there will be many opportunities for those who see that and look to that. And then to go to things like this and hear, like Wendy has, and hear people, okay? And I got to hear people that are not only in your industry, because you learn from people who are not in your industry also. And I do think there are going to be some industries that are really hurt and hit hard and that might not make it. And those people have to know when it's time to say, okay, how can I reinvent myself, or what can I do? Or there's a lot of government aid programs. What can I do to reinvent myself? And hopefully you will be doing more things on reinventing yourself. Hopefully I will. And I don't know, maybe a little birdie told me this, but hopefully you can find some great mentors. You've got to stay on it. You've got to be positive. Realistic though, realistic because there are going to be some people that do lose businesses as that happen, but there's always opportunities. And look at how the world is going to change and what's going to be different. And then look for white spaces. I think I just call them white spaces. And there's spaces that I think are going to happen and that no one's really in that space yet. I want to help people get there. I want to help people find their white space. I want to help people look at, gee, am I an entrepreneur? Do I have what it takes to be an entrepreneur? And if I don't, that's not a bad thing. That just means that I should be doing something different. And if I do have those abilities, how do I raise money? Okay? Because an entrepreneur who has something they want to sell, it might be great, but if you can't raise the money or you can't go out there. So I want to help people. I really want to help people get to whatever their next level or their dream is. And I do believe that if you're passionate about it and you reach out enough, okay, there's many people I know you're the same way that'll be there to help. It's been a road. It's been a journey. It's been a long, great, tough, but fulfilling journey. And I am thrilled, and I couldn't have asked to end up with a better career in my life. I always worked part-time. I've worked since I'm 13. I always liked nice clothes, and my father was like, well, you have a roof over your shoulder, so I always worked to buy my extra stuff, and Then I graduated college, and in those days, believe it or not, they didn't have the internet.
I know.
So I had to read a book, and I read a book, and it said, if you want to get ahead in life, you're better off working in the mailroom where the people that make the decisions are than to be far away from the decision makers. And I had done real estate part-time, and I had no intentions of staying in it. I wanted to be a stockbroker and work for Merrill. I had taken my Series 7, and I found out where the head guy of Merrill was. I saved up my money, and no one gets to speak to him.
Okay.
And I kind of snuck in, sat around, and when the secretary moved, I just went in. And I said, I'm great, I will be great for you. And I read in the book that if you want to get ahead, you have to meet the head guy. And you're in. And the guy kind of, for a second, looked a little shocked, but then he started to laugh.
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, I worked for Merrill. They started opening offices in the 80s in markets across the country.
And this is Merrill Lynch Real Estate?
Yes, and in the 80s, Merrill was Merrill.
Merrill was the company.
They were it. And they started to open offices, the top 2 offices in all the markets they wanted to be in. They were a national company, so I worked for them. And I have to attribute a lot to them because they really grew me, and they spent money on what they felt was their biggest asset, and that was their employees.
Sure.
And I traveled around the United States, and I learned that New York is not as progressive as the West Coast.
Okay.
And I saw real estate in a global fashion when at that time real estate was very local. You know, it was a mom and pop that,
Sure.
you know, was in the Civic Association. So I loved working for them, and I was a regional manager in the Northeast region. And then I was so sad. They said, we're out of real estate. We want to get out of it. We're selling it. P.S. They sold the company. In walks Prudential, which was a different pace. And they said, we don't want to have a national real estate company. We think that real estate is local, and therefore we're going to franchise out offices across the United States. And your job is just keep this place together until we get a buyer.
Okay.
And there I was going to be out of a job. So, I was about 29, and someone said, well, why don't you buy it? And I said, well, I don't have any money, that's why. And they said, well, say you do.
Okay.
And at 29, and that's the beauty of being young, I said, that's a great idea. And I had a little help from some of the husbands of the women that worked for me who were all older than me. And I wrote a letter to Prudential saying that I had venture capital money. And meanwhile, of course, I had tried, the banks hung up on me, they wouldn't even talk to me. And to make a long story short, I bought the Long Island company probably when I was about 32 years old. It was $9 million, and I borrowed 2 point something in working capital with no money down and no personal guarantees.
Wow.
And I know that's never heard of. But I learned a very big lesson in my life.
Okay, what's that?
That if you don't ask, and what's the worst that happens? Someone laughs in your face and says, what, are you kidding me? So you always should ask.
Or was
Well, that was a breakthrough, but the biggest breakthrough was when I bought Douglas Elliman.
Okay.
And that, you know, being in the city and being in real estate is like being in Hollywood.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think there were 2 breakthroughs. The first one was then, and then buying Douglas Elliman, it set my career to a whole other degree. It's very international. I was on Long Island, which was great, but it was a whole different kind of market. And I tell people, never be afraid to fail.
That's right.
Okay, it's part of success. So I think, and I'm not afraid to ask. And I think that too many people are, because they're afraid people are going to make fun of them or say, see, I told you it wasn't going to happen. And I have a sign when you walk into my office, and it says, success is failure turned inside out. And if you're afraid to fail, you'll never succeed, because no one who succeeded didn't fail, no matter what profession they're in.
Wow.
You just see them when they're at this place, and you don't look at all the times they had to pick themselves up, wipe themselves off, cry a little bit, and move on. I'm very creative, and I'm a visionary, and of course I love Douglas Elliman. I built Douglas Elliman, but it's at a point now where I have enough people that can take the day-to-day stuff,
Sure.
and I like creating stuff. And I see such opportunities there. And I also feel that when you're blessed, as I feel myself, to come from nowhere and have almost like a Cinderella story, not that I didn't work hard for it, it's really very inspiring for people to hear that story and feel that they have some hope. So many people really just give up, and I hope that I've made a difference, and I hope that I continue to do that. So I tell entrepreneurs and people, the first thing you have to do is be passionate. If you don't love what you do, you're never going to be great at it.
Sure.
And then don't hang around all the people that will tell you how you can't. I try to stay around positive people. I don't want to hear all the people that tell me how I can't. Well, as I said, first of all, they're passionate.
Okay.
They're passionate, they're hard workers, they're visionaries, and they really grow and look at all different opportunities. And really what they're doing in our business is building a business within a business. So besides for knowing real estate, you have to know how to build businesses. I'm happy when I'm giving back, or when I'm watching people who have worked for me and have grown,
Sure.
and reached the levels of wherever it is they want to be. That really gives me a lot of joy. Everyone looks at someone successful, regardless of what industry they're in, and says, oh, well, they had an uncle, their parents were successful and gave them money, they knew somebody great. And when I first started in the real estate business many years ago, and I worked for Merrill Lynch, they made me read a book, and it was about all these successful people and what their life was like before. And it was struggles, and it was ups and downs, it was rejection. I mean, just think about it. If you're an actor with Seinfeld, they told them he'd never make it. And it was when somebody was down and out and everyone had rejected them, they just kept on going, and that's when it happened. So you have to have staying power, and you have to, I think, there's no one that gets through life without obstacles. And I spoke this morning to a real estate class, and I said, our business is kind of like peaks and valleys. So when you're up and everything is working, and you're getting listings and you're selling properties, it's easy to be motivated. Then you lose a listing, a deal falls apart, and you go in the slump. And then it takes you 3 months to get out of the slump. Yep. You have to learn how to kind of be consistent and understand that is the business peaks and valleys. You have to know how to manage them. And what I do when I hit a valley, which I could write a book on how many I've met, I feel bad. My boss once told me, don't let anyone see you cry. Okay, so I'll get in my car or I'll leave and I'll cry and I'll feel bad for myself, and I'll take a day or two, and then I'll come back, and I'm always on stage, which if you're in this business, you should always realize you're on stage. Nobody wants to be with somebody who's like, oh, the business is bad, I didn't sell any properties, it's a horrible year, and you don't realize you're talking to your friends even, and they're going to be in their mind, they're not going to recommend you. So you've got to be on stage, and you have to get back in the game, pick yourself up, and go forward. And I will tell you that when there's an obstacle, which there'll always be obstacles in life, you have to figure out how to go around. So if you get stuck, you stop, take a step back, and figure another way to go around that. I go to a lot of conferences. I always believe in going and growing, and not necessarily to go with necessarily even your own industry. If you talk to women, they're usually more honest than men about it. When I was younger, I would say to all these successful men that ran big companies, oh, just tell me how you do it. Well, they would act like there was like no problems, just easy breezy. Well, when you go to a woman, they would say, gosh, like I almost lost my marriage. You balance, gee, I think it's, gee, my daughter or my children need it like right now, or my husband needs a little attention now. And it's not like the movies where you wake up and it's all glamorous and the kids are just perfect. So it's a balancing act. And I think you have to kind of step back and know when maybe your family needs a little more of you, or your business. I mean, it's hard to stop and say, I'm going home. And you have to have a support system of some sort. that helps you be a little flexible. The lessons I learned on the things that worked and some of the things that I didn't, that I didn't, because I think that there's so much opportunity. People are afraid. First, sometimes they don't see them. And then second, they're afraid that someone's gonna say, oh, see, you didn't make it, or you didn't get it, or I told you. So I kind of want to do lessons learned, basically, a kind of lessons learned book, because everyone thinks that I, sitting, here, they don't know what I could write a book about all the things that were so tough for me. And I think when people hear that, they feel, well, you know what? She could do it. If she could do it, I can do it. Believe me, I grew up with no mom. I was the oldest of 3 children. My mom died in a car accident when I was 10 because I was knocked out. I didn't know my mother died. And there was a priest, and he said to me, I don't know how to tell you this, but your mom's dead. And he gave me, and I started to cry, he gave me an angel, a wooden angel that was a music box. And he said, you have an angel though, she's always gonna be there. And I believe in that. And I believe I have angels, and I kind of always wanted to do it. I want to make my mom proud too. So, but I love what I do also. So I think that life is all about how you navigate through it. And so is the real estate business.